Okay, so thank you all for attending. It's May 25th. It's Monday evening here on the East Coast of the United States. And I think, as you know, we have two meetings now, Cosmobiology Institute. One on Sunday morning at 8 a.m., that's Eastern time, and this one here at 8 p.m. on Monday. This is to accommodate people in different time zones. And we had a great meeting on Sunday morning attended mostly, but not exclusively, by people in Europe. And I will upload that tomorrow along with this one. And let me share my screen and I'll mention a few kind of announcements. And then we'll explore. Hopefully, you guys have some ideas. We have a lot of people with different kinds of expertise in research methods. Primarily, Christopher and Vincent are with me, and many of you as well may have some different kinds of skills. And I know Kai does all kinds of cool things as well. Um, and Penelope is constantly bringing up very interesting topics. So I'd like to hear from all of you. Greg is doing some cool research. All right, let me share my screen. Share screen. Okay, so just a few announcements, and then I'd like to open this up. Hopefully, you've got some topics or questions, things you want to discuss. Um, we had the conference, the Cosmobiology Institute conference. We called it the Cosmic Discovery Conference. People have been asking about it. It was really a wonderful experience to be with people in person. It was just very cohesive, and everybody supporting everybody. Um, Angela, who organized the conference, did a spectacular job. One of the things she did was we provided breakfast and lunch. And I've noticed when I go to astrology conferences, especially at lunchtime, everybody disperses and sometimes takes them a lot of time to get back. So it was very convenient, very nice. We had some outstanding presentations. One thing that I took away from the conference is the difference between practitioners and researchers. And I think that boiling things down to the net result finding and why we have certain levels of confidence is something we need to do for practitioners. And then we also need for researchers the you know, technical details of actually conducting research. That was a thought that I have, not that I'm 100% sure about it. It was my subjective impression. Um, and if you have any questions or things you want to talk about with the conference, we can do that. Um, Another thing to mention is we are planning to have a certification program, and we're just working out the general outline of that. Um, Most astrology organizations have a certification program, and evidence-based astrology is emerging as a kind of astrology. You have Vedic astrology and Hellenistic astrology and uh, evolutionary astrology and evidence-based astrology, which really crosses all theoretical frameworks, is a term we use for it, whether that's Vedic or modern psychological. But what we do in evidence-based astrology is have we applied modern research methods that remove things like selection bias and therefore give us a little more confidence about what's going on. Um, okay, and okay. All right, so I'll just remove this. These are comments from notes from yesterday. Okay, so does anybody have, let me go into my chat in case anybody's put something there. Does anybody have any topics, questions, anything that you're interested in? Otherwise, I can wax eloquent for hours. Any of you that know me, just like turn on the switch and I don't stop. But better is to talk about what you're interested in related to astrology research. I don't see anything in the chat unless I'm missing it. Um, so you can unmute yourself. Um,
I have something. I'm new here, but I thought I might share.
Yeah.
So yeah, so my name is Emily. I actually came across you guys on some social media. They had attended I think like a conference you guys had in Nashville, which is so funny because that's where I live and I had no idea. Um but
Yeah.
I'm a data analyst. I'm currently looking for a job, but I'm a data analyst and also a lover of astrology, which I know is probably a real like probably something you guys see a lot, but not a lot of other people see. But I just thought I would introduce myself and say that one of my passions in data analysis is looking into astrology of like famous people and kind of figuring out if I can see patterns that are statistically outside of the realm of probability. It is hard because you only have access to so many famous people's charts and verified birth times and things like that. But one of my capstone projects for a specific software certification I was doing was on the astrology of famous musicians. So anyway, I just thought I would share that. That's really interesting. I've seen, and I went into it thinking, well, maybe this will disprove or give me some doubt, but it didn't. It actually I actually saw quite a few patterns. So anyway,
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Wow,
This,
it's incredible that we don't know you. You're
oh,
exactly in this on the same wavelength than us.
really? Do you know what's so funny? I guess you know how algorithms are, and they try to figure out like how you like the best things that you want to see on like TikTok and Instagram and things. And I was on TikTok and came across someone talking about this, and I thought this is really weird. I did my project on this specifically. Like
Wow.
that's crazy. And I
You're
think,
well
are you guys
you're
located
well
in Cincinnati too?
you're really welcome. I don't-
Yeah. Yeah, no, thank you guys. I'm excited. I was really excited
Wow.
when I got an email back about this.
Yeah.
yeah. Nice.
What are some of the patterns you found?
So I actually had my report pulled up in case I ended up telling anyone about this. So it's not what I expected necessarily. Mercury and Mars seem to be the ones that really stand out. And I'm using traditional or not traditional, but modern astrology and modern Western. But Mercury and Mars, when you go, you know how each degree is supposed to represent a sign. Um, there's like a statistically abnormal, and I need to get the actual numbers on here because that wasn't what I did this project on specifically. It was something I found after, like as I was presenting and preparing my presentation. But I noticed that Mercury, like if you have your planet, your Mercury in a Mercury ruled sign, it's almost like it gives you like
Hmm.
a boost. And same with Mars. So I
Oh.
was expecting like Venus or the moon. Um, but
Hmm.
one of the bigger, like more simple things is that water signs were like everywhere, which, musicians, you would think. Um, and moon signs specifically, since they change every, 2.5 days, I thought that would be very interesting to see, because you kind of can take away a lot of variables,
Hmm.
and because anyone's moon can be anything. And that was, yeah, the top two right here are Cancer and Pisces. So,
What kind
um,
of what kind of famous musicians are you looking, Emily?
I looked at anybody, so anybody, I think the youngest or the oldest was born in 1901, the youngest was like 1990, and anybody who's been on the Billboard top 100, I believe. Let me look at my main page. It's been a couple months since I did this presentation.
Not classical, more popular musician.
Yes, yeah, popular
Okay.
music. So
Okay.
only four musicians out of my 108 never made the charts, but that mostly was because the charts weren't even a thing when they
Hmm.
were really big. I want to say Johnny Cash was one that didn't make the charts, but obviously everyone knows who he is. But he was older. But yeah, popular musicians, and I kind of looked at how many weeks they're on these top Billboard charts,
Hmm.
and um,
It's
and how
very
many hits they
excellent.
have.
Billboard chart gives you an objective selection criteria. That's good.
Exactly. Yeah,
Exactly. That was
exactly.
exactly my thought. So you have a very
Yeah.
good
Yes.
selection method. There's
Yeah.
no personal bias. You went, I guess, online, you saw the top people, and then you selected all of them. Did you use them regardless of their birth data accuracy, or did you limit it to
No, I
AA?
limited it. Yeah, so I used that, the Rodden rating, is it something like that?
Yes.
So I did the AAA, A, so
Now,
anything down to B, which is
To
biographical.
be, okay.
right.
So I figured a biography was good enough to they do their
Mhm.
research. But
Yeah,
Yeah.
anything that
for
was
what you're looking at, I agree. This is you, Emily, you can't imagine how exciting this is to us. That,
excited too.
yeah, I mean, I'm in seventh heaven. You're a data analyst, you love astrology, you went in, you did a proper a sampling procedure, and you did exploratory research, poking around to see what shows up,
Hmm. Yeah.
which is a completely valid form of research. There's many
Yes.
kinds of research that we can do, and an advantage. Just I'm speaking to everyone here, just to like catch up with why we're so excited about what she's doing.
Yeah,
Is
me
that
too.
yeah,
Yeah.
Vincent, is
It's
is
like for me, it's like a little miracle because I thought I knew everybody doing your type of research, being close to correlation and
Mhm.
magazine and everything, and then you come up, wow, it's a
yeah,
surprise.
there are
Yeah.
That's
people out there working on their own who have not connected.
yeah, yeah.
The things like Correlation Magazine, they're not that well known. They're hard to find. We found it, so it seems obvious to us. But
Right.
um,
And I just thought this was a um, really niche interest of mine. And I thought, well, maybe there's someone out there, but I didn't imagine there'd be an organization.
yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's why we founded the organization. The goal of Cosmobiology Institute is to create a global network of people interested in, real research, not just the anecdotal stuff astrologers usually do. And we're looking for people like Emily. So this is so exciting to us.
Are you
Um,
the person who said you live in Nashville, Emily, or someone else?
Yeah,
yeah, she lives in
or
Nashville.
just south of Nashville. Yeah.
Yeah,
Just found out that this
you found,
conference was in her hometown.
yeah,
Yeah, I
That's
know. I
you
know.
weird.
I
found
thought,
out
oh, I would have gone.
like a week too late or something. So that's,
Wow.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It
Did
was like a week. Yeah.
did you have a control group?
A control group. So, oh, you mean like for the average, that's a good idea. I should
Yeah.
do that. Like get a
Yeah.
bunch
Yeah,
of random people. Um, I did not do that. But that's a great
you need,
idea to see
well,
if anything comes up.
you need a control group.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you
Yeah.
ask Christophe, we'll tell you something. If you ask me, I'll tell you other thing because we're not completely on the same wavelength
Yeah.
about control group. But it's not important. It's only subtleties.
No, I think yeah. So what I was looking at more was, well, so this particular class I did was a visual. I don't know if you guys know what Microsoft Power BI is, but it's like a visualization tool. So the class I was doing, it was more of like building the actual visualization than coming up with findings, which like, some parts of data, that is what you do. But so I looked at some statistical stuff, like on an average. I tried to kind of work with AI and ask, okay, like how long is
Okay.
this planet in this
But
sign?
Emily, a very important question. When you say that you observe, let's say a Mercury pattern, outstanding pattern, to measure how outstanding it is, you need to know what would be the average random. So this random you cannot evaluate only a priori, like, oh, this is the orb, this is Baba. No, you need experimental control group to check against, to symbolize a random that you're checking against it. Excuse my English. Am I clear, Santino, or you can
Yeah,
say
no,
it
you're
better than
clear.
me?
Let's talk about control groups because
That makes sense.
I suspect one reason why Emily did not use a control group is because it's not obvious how to create a good one. If you're new to astrology research or you've been working on your own, and you know, among us, we have some different points of view, I think, a little bit on control groups. But Vincent, why don't you share your thoughts? I think your thoughts are probably similar to mine on how would she create a control group?
I'll describe the famous block shuffling method, but it's very conservative. It means that this method protect you against doing a type 1 error. A type 1 error, maybe you don't know. I don't know if you're familiar. It means, I'll tell it. A type 1 error is pretending that you found a law, which is not true. A type 2 error is like you miss a result because you were too conservative. So you miss an important result because you were too tight. So this
Can I rephrase that, Vincent? Just
yeah, thank you.
because of the
Yeah, I'm not good.
the translation to English, you said pretending. Yeah, I'm fussy about these things. So type 1 error is when you think you found something, something statistical, you found something important, but you really didn't, because we're using a sample and of something, and so it could just be a random fluctuation in that data, of course.
Mhm.
So the idea in research is that there is a truth. There is a truth out there of that popular musicians have something in their chart, or maybe they don't have anything in their chart, but we're assuming that there might be. And so, have we found the truth? If we think we found the truth, like they have planets in water signs or Mercury in a sign that it rules or whatever, and that ends up not being true in reality, if at some future time more research is done, or some omniscient being who knows everything knows the absolute truth, maybe you think you found something you didn't. That's a type 1 error. Type 2 error is there is a truth, but we missed it in the research, sometimes because our criteria were too demanding. Like we wanted
Yeah,
0.01, we didn't have a large enough sample size. For whatever reason, we didn't find it, but we almost found it, but we didn't. So what Vincent's saying about the shuffled control group, as it's often called, is it's very conservative, which means it protects us against type 1 errors. However, that means it increases type 2 errors. So we call that conservative, which means you're not likely to claim something untrue. You might miss a lot of things that are true. So each researcher, chooses their own balance. And so he's discussing the shuffled control group, which is conservative, which means it protects against type 1 errors, but opens us up to type 2 errors. Okay, I took a long time to
thank you,
rephrase
No,
that.
no, that was excellent. It was so well explained. Thank you.
Yeah,
Perfect.
I appreciate that too, because I do have some statistical background, but not a whole lot. So like a lot of it is learning as I go. So that's really good to know. And I totally understand what you're saying about a control group. I think my methodology was like on the surface at least I wanted to I thought, okay, well maybe the moon sign would be the most evenly distributed. But I do see what you're saying, because even if I were to
Now,
calculate the
Emily,
orbits
I'm
and
going to explain to you and to everybody who don't know the method, the block shuffling. It's going to be easy for you with your background. You take four different criteria in your birth data. You take the year, the date, which include the number and the month. This is number 2. Number 3 is the locus, I mean longitude and latitude combined. The locus, can we say that?
Place, yeah.
The place. And finally, the time, the hour, birth time. So for each of those 4 categories, you take your group of musicians and you shuffle all their years. Then you shuffle all their date. Then you shuffle all their locus, and you shuffle all their birth data. Doing that, you destroy the possibility of getting a signature by random describing a musician, but you keep a lot of things. You keep a lot of geographical, astronomical, historical characteristics. So this group and you shuffle many times. Each time you shuffle, you do it 1, 2, 3. You can do it like 100,000 times. A very big random control group. And this is your representation of randomness, against which you're looking for significant factors.
Let me
Is it
give a
clear? I'm not sure I was clear.
Let me give a concrete example. Let's say we want to do research on us, everybody in this room, to see if we have anything in common. So we shuffle it. We might end up with my birth date. We might end up with Vicky's birth time. We might end up with Emily's birthplace. And what was the other one? Date, time,
Year.
year. We might end up with
Vincent,
Christopher's
year.
year. And then we might have another chart that has Kai's date and so on. So,
Oh,
you end up with a bunch of people that are like hybrids of us, you know. So it's got my birth year, but Emily's birth time, etc. And what this does is it means that the control group, they're born in the same exact years as the group you're studying. That means you're not getting any effect because your control group was born at a different time period, and they're born during the same times of day. Like if
yeah.
most people
Thank
are
you.
born in the morning, they're born in the
That's
morning.
so clear. That's so
So
clear.
it's so this shuffled control group matches
Yeah.
the
But the big
experimental group,
argument,
the group that you're
yeah.
studying so closely
Thank
that
you.
it's artificially similar, and that's why it
Yeah.
protects
But the
against
big
hyperhidrosis.
argument against that method, let's say that there's a real effect of more Pisces, Sun in Pisces among musicians, you will miss it because doing what we described, your control group will be similar in amount of Sun Pisces with that method because you keep the same date that you have in the group. So you will miss it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
So
you'll miss
maybe
house
Christopher can explain
positions.
it better than me because he's reluctant to use that method because of that.
Yeah, I'd
Yeah.
like to know from Christopher. So, Christopher, why don't you want to use this method? I like to learn both ways, like both
oh,
aspects of it.
oh, okay. It's well, Vincent gave a good example, and I was thinking of something similar. Let's suppose all of us in this meeting just happen to have Sun and Gemini.
Mm-hmm.
Chances are, after shuffling everything, uh, you'd still wind up with a lot of charts with Sun and Gemini.
Yeah.
Uh, so, I mean, there are sort of extreme cases, let's say, or special ways in which shuffling can fail to work. It can have a lot of advantages. One of the advantages, which Vincent was alluding to, I think Santino was alluding to, is uh, even though you're shuffling things, you're not changing the overall underlying distributions,
Yeah,
right? You can shuffle the years, but you still have overall the same set of years. So by working with the same underlying distributions, that helps to guarantee that you're not introducing new extraneous variables. But as was pointed out by Vincent with his case of Sun and Pisces, there are certain circumstances where shuffling can probably fail to achieve what you're trying to achieve. Now, whether you use shuffled control groups or whether you're using charts of actual people as a control group, the goal is really the same, I believe. You're trying to uh, create a group which is simply represents what to expect on average, as if nothing significant was going on, nothing unusual is going on. And then if you compare your experimental sample to that control group and you find significant differences, then you feel pretty confident that something actually is going on. Now,
that's
there's
very
another reason why, I'm not totally against shuffle control groups. I just, for a variety of reasons, I tend to prefer if I can get them, groups of actual people. And one of the reasons is because that is the way in which astrology was developed and evolved. As I always say, if we believe that having Mars square your moon in your birth chart makes a person more impulsive, astrologers arrived at that conclusion by comparing the charts of people with Mars square moon against the charts of people who don't have Mars square moon. And it's, despite the advantages of shuffle control groups, perhaps one of the disadvantages is that it's in some sense artificial. Those charts don't necessarily correspond to real people. So there's always that question in my mind. If we compare our sample against a control group, a well-chosen control group of real people, then will we see that difference? And if we're not seeing the difference, then that becomes a problem. Of course, at the same time, if you're using a control group of real people, you have to try and be careful not to introduce the kinds of problems that shuffle control groups are designed to try and eliminate.
I'd like to add something, Christopher. There's no rule obliging you to get some charts, realistic charts.
Yeah.
Because the control group is a kind of virtual construction symbolizing randomness. So
yes,
if we can, you remember that book by in the 80s by about the distribution of aspects during the 20th century. What's the name of the guy who wrote that?
Mark Pottinger, that one?
Yeah, Pottinger book. So it's a kind of Monte Carlo method to play better than looking at the actual movement in the sky, because this movement is so irregular that we can fall in that dangerous pitfall, which is very simple. I'll explain. Let's say, Emily, that you got an aspect with 6-degree orbs. So 6 degrees times 2, it's 12 divided by 360. So you, by a kind of proportionality, you decide that you got 12 divided by 360, a 3% chance. This is wrong, because the movement is not uniform, retrogradation, direct, etc., and it's not regular. So you cannot trust that proportionality method to decide what is random. This is the reason why Mark Pottinger made that book in the end of the 80s years. But now we have better methods. Monte Carlo, we simulate randomness by creating a kind of virtual group that it only gives you a statement about randomness.
Oh, yeah. But even Monte Carlo methods, I was reading about this today, they can introduce statistical artifacts.
Oh, yeah.
So, I mean, it's,
that's bad news.
yeah, we're in some ways we can be damned if we do and damned if we don't. With all of these methods, I think there are things that can go wrong. I still have a preference for using real world data, because that is where astrology has to work. And even when sometimes when it doesn't replicate the way we think it will, if it's real world data, we sometimes discover a reason, an astrological reason, or some other reason why it didn't replicate. So and that can be valuable. So it's
Can I just ask a question of Emily, please?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah. Hi, it's Penelope from Australia. I'm just wondering, you said you noted statistical significance, so you've obviously drawn on a group apart from your famous musicians. How did you develop that statistical significance? Perhaps you might, if you don't mind, share that with us.
Yeah. So I'm gonna be honest, I'm not sure where I put the file with that on there, but I can tell you exactly what I did. So this was, I think I got my project done a little bit early before our presentation time, like a day or so, and I decided I was going to use the moon sign to figure out how likely it is that someone would have, or that a group of 108 people I would find, for example, 8 people with their moon at 17 degrees. And it was kind of simplistic, I just did 108 divided by 30, like how many should I have on average? And then I did a z-score and a p-value for that. And some of them, a lot of these things were more than one standard deviation, but less than two. So just enough to be like, well, maybe. But not quite to usually when I see two, I'm like, there's something there. But it was more exploratory than it was like an official thing.
Yeah.
I should work on that, honestly. Maybe I'll do that soon.
Emily, when you do your Z test, what do you use it as an average?
I do it as a population. You mean when you ask what I do as my average? So like with
Yeah,
degree here.
you got observed value, observation, but your expected value to make your Z test, your Z. How do you design? How do you find your expected value?
Yeah, so with moon, that was the easiest one, like you said,
Yeah.
with other planets that move quickly or move at different speeds and go retrograde. I just did the total population divided by 30 degrees. So my expected
Okay.
would have been 3.6
That's
per.
so that's the pitfall. You cannot do that. That's what we explained since 15 minutes.
hmm
It's only as first look, it's okay. Like, okay, I'm checking that. A bit like Manda has done in her last research. She looked at that. Then after she built a control group to make sure.
Right.
But
And I slowly see the significance, like why. I think that's going to be the next thing I do is.
Let me mention a little bit more about Vincent's objection, which I agree with. The number of things that affect the distribution of births is fascinating. For example, there are more people born 9 months after Christmas, New Year's holiday than at any other time of the year because it's winter in the Northern Hemisphere and their parents are home and not working, so they can make babies. So, you get all kinds of things that happen. In Brazil, almost all children are born during the day. Why? Because cesarean section is done routinely over 90% of births, and doctors work during the day. If babies are born without an intervention, they're usually born a little before sunrise. It's just part of a natural circadian rhythm. There are so many things that affect the distribution. If there's a war during COVID, who knows what that did? Like, that's going to totally disturb everything. And it's different in different countries. Plus, of course, let's say you find Sun trine Jupiter in the group. Well, Sun is trine Jupiter way more often than any other aspect because Jupiter stations around trine to Sun. There's so many things that happen during certain years. Certain aspects will happen for long periods of time, even with inner planets. So it's so wild and crazy that just saying, using a percentage is very far away. You really want to use either, as Christopher likes to do, a group of people, or as Vincent and I like to do, a shuffled control group. And I want to talk about a consensus we might come to about shuffled control groups versus people, but I'll stop there for now.
Before
Yeah.
leaving the subject, Christopher, did you read my review of your article? Because
Oh,
I thought,
I just got this afternoon from Robert. I'm gonna get started on
oh, you
tomorrow.
don't have time. So I'll just quote an example I give exactly on that subject. It's a real example. I'll read it because it's easier for me. An astrology study has already shown that a significant number of Aquarians become professional hockey players. That's funny because I had my son today after I wrote that, and he said, "Hey, Papa, did you notice that there are more Aquarian in hockey?" He noticed that. He's a computer.
Yeah.
Before speculating on why someone born with the sun in Aquarius might be interested in hockey or more gifted at it, it's important to understand the following rule. The transition period between age groups for young hockey players occurs at the end of February. In other words, Aquarians born in late January or February are always the oldest in their age group. They are therefore favored during this period of life when age makes a big difference for young people, which puts them in a dominant position and strengthens their potential and passion for hockey. The use of the block shuffling method would have prevented the publication of a false result that has nothing to do with astrology.
Hmm.
It's a very dramatic example.
Yeah, that's a good example. I want to make this point that to build some consensus. So would Vincent and Christopher agree with me that if the researcher is very worried about type 1 errors, the researcher is kind of paranoid. They don't want to claim they found something when they did not, but they're not so concerned about type 2 errors. Then the shuffled control group would be a good method for them. But if the astrologer wants to be more balanced and be able to pick up, not have a lot of type 2 errors, be able to find things if they're there, they might be more inclined to a group of real people. So would both of you agree with that?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, yes.
I'd like to add a couple of things. In the best of all possible worlds, I'd like to see the results of comparing against both a shuffled control group and a real world control group. If both of them uh, sh- lead to significant results, then that just increases my confidence
Mhm.
in the astrological effect. If one of them leads to a significant result and the other doesn't, as in the hockey example you just gave, then that raises more questions to resolve, just as you resolved it in the hockey example. So we can benefit from that knowledge. Uh, the other thing I want to bring up, it's a little bit more uh, has to do with methodology. Usually, I think when astrologers are doing exploratory research, they're starting with people with a certain condition, like being a popular musician, and then they're looking for astrological similarities, moon things, Mars things, common aspects, etc. Once they've identified those similarities, then we actually sort of reverse the process or the implication. We tend to then start with people that have that astrological condition and look to see how many of them, in this case, become popular musicians. But this is, if you're starting with the astrological condition, that's where I think shuffling leads to a problem. Uh, if I start with astrological aspects, for example, and then I shuffle, uh, in that shuffle control group, since they're not actual people, I can't tell you whether someone then goes on to become a musician or not.
Mhm.
Yeah,
There's
so there,
something else. There's something else. Oh, did you finish? Excuse me.
yeah,
I thought,
yeah, I,
okay. There's something really weird because in your article,
hmm
I was, because I review Christopher
yeah,
excellent article. I was very surprised to read this. And it's connected to what you said, Santino, about type 1 and type 2,
yeah,
different attitude. He wrote, I personally consider type 2 errors to be just as serious as type 1 errors. In
Mm.
other words, in past research, too many important astrological effects may have failed to have been verified simply because the tests that we've done lacked sufficient statistical power. The powers,
yeah,
you may explain it better than me. So this made me really ponder how come he's there, because Christopher is extremely rigorous. He's a PhD in math.
mhm,
So, and I just found this. I tell him I disagree, um, because it concerns a dominating astrology as improbable, inexplicable, acausal, mysterious, and invisible as astrology. The burden of proof rests with us. I would not want to take too great a risk by publishing something dubious, type 1 error, and it would much rather miss and I would much rather miss laws and reject something that could have been valid type 2 error. But I went further than that. I said, how come we disagree? And I think I found the reason. I understand that our viewpoints depend on what we expect from research.
yeah,
If we expect research to establish the validity of astrology and restore its prestige, then my viewpoint prevails. If, on the other hand, we expect research to gradually build a body of valid knowledge through long and patient collective work, then Christopher's viewpoint is correct.
yeah. What I had in mind when I made that statement in my paper, I was thinking about a lot of studies I'd read about, not the Gauquelin studies, of course, but other studies, back in the, 60s, 70s, or 80s, which simply had very small sample sizes. And because of those small sample sizes, they lacked sufficient statistical power.
Mhm.
And consequently, I thought, well, you know, the uh, the alternative hypothesis that they were hoping to accept may have actually been true, but they just weren't able to demonstrate it because their sample sizes were too small.
Mhm.
Okay.
And they, yeah,
Okay, I want to open this up to the other attendees because this is a very high level, important discussion. But I want to, we're here to help the
Yeah.
attendees. We're
yeah,
not
Yeah.
here to help each other. So we're
Yeah.
helping
Okay.
each other, and I'm not sure that we're helping the attendees as much because it's such a high level discussion. So Manda, and Penelope and Emily and anyone else, I don't know how much you've absorbed of these discussions or what questions you have left, but I'd like to hear from you guys so we can address your interests.
Yes.
You
Mhm.
know, okay, I'll make a comment,
Yes,
Amanda.
please.
This is very interesting because I've talked to Vincent, I've talked to Christopher, and I go back and forth with it because I go back and forth for the same reason explained so beautifully by both Vincent and Christopher. They explained it really well. And I think this is an important thing to consider. I mean, I do agree there are certain research that will not fit with the shuffle method. And I can explain one of them that I'm kind of doing, and I would actually like to get your feedback on that. But I do think in some ways, like what Vincent said, it's a matter of what you're trying to get out of your research to some extent. Because yes, in one case, it's like yes, there might be something very important that we is not going to come out in astrology, and if that's important for you, then so it's kind of based on your value, I think.
Yes.
Because I think research does have values. When person does research, there is a goal there. Like for me, I do think the goal for me when I do research is I do want people to see astrology as valid. It's so important, that goal. So I think it's important. I think that value is important. Which angle are you coming from?
Amanda, let me ask a question. What people do you want to understand that the astrology works? Is it astrologers or would it be technical people in the sciences or both? Because the criteria, I think, is different depending on who finds the research impressive.
I think at some point, and I don't know if this is kind of crazy because in some part of me, or part of, I'm sure we've had this discussion. Why do we need other people to accept it, right? But I think it's important. I really
Mhm.
important for people to see that this is very scientific. Actually, astrology has a science in it. It's a probabilistic science, but it's still there. It's very valid. It's evidence based, and I do think the whole world needs to accept that this is important thing.
Because the criteria of scientists, tends to be more demanding than the criteria of people in astrology. So, in order to get, if you want to get the attention of people who are not engaged in astrology, they usually they're quick to see any possible weakness because they're skeptical of it.
Yeah.
Whereas if the research is extremely impressive, my experience has been that they do become interested.
So, well,
Yes.
tell me what would be that, Santino? That's it's a question maybe not now or sometime we need to talk. What would be that research they will expect? Because even Gauquelin, they basically question that, right? They question
Yeah, well, I
Gauquelin.
question the Gauquelin research too. I don't think it's as impressive as people think.
Okay,
So,
it's not
I'd,
okay,
I,
so it's not impressive. Okay.
I'd like to make a comment about something we hear very often in the astrology community. A lot of astrologers think that trying to convince or validate astrology for scientists, bona fide, so I don't talk about cynical skeptics, is a kind of submissive attitude. And they say, why do that? It's
Mm-hmm.
very simple. It's very simple. It's not to kiss their ring as popes. No, it's just to open the door of
Mhm.
one university or two, then three, then four. If you open the door of university, look at what power, money we have to do research. What do you,
yeah,
Yeah.
what do you
so
think of that?
Amanda wants to reach everyone, scientists and astrologers. And yeah, and I agree, Vincent, that's a very good point that it's not just to appease somebody. It opens doors, it makes connections, it builds a
Yes.
network of power and influence and the ability to move things forward. So, um, I'm trying to build some kind of
Can
consensus.
I add something to that,
Yeah, go ahead,
please?
Penelope.
I think that apart from, it's all right, very well for us to validate things for, the broader academic community, but we're at a very pivotal time in astrological history where we have so many options in front of us that we don't even need to focus on what other people think about what astrology is. We've got a voyage of discovery ahead of us, and we're working out ways to agree on that voyage. I think that's part of what's happening. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I wanted to make a couple of quick remarks. I think I said in my paper something to the effect of, whether one is using shuffle control groups or real world control groups or some other technique. The bottom line, I think, is the important thing is we have to think deeply and carefully about what we're doing and what can go wrong, possibly. And it's also good to consult with other peers
Mhm.
because just as we say what one astrologer misses, another will catch, it's also true what one statistician misses, another will catch. And I'm also one of those who want to convince not only our fellow astrologers, but also the rest of the scientific community of the value and worth of the research we're doing. A lot of good research has been done. Acceptance by both groups, I know it's just going to take time. But as I often say, if astrology doesn't work, then neither does statistics.
Yeah, I
Let
love
me
that.
try to draw a conclusion that I think everybody will agree with. If you want to be safe in your research, because Emily's doing research, Amanda's doing research, everybody agrees a control group is important. If you want to be really safe, do both. Do a
Yeah.
shuffled control group and pick a group of people that seems similar to what you're doing. That's your safe outlet. And then, as Christopher said, you'll
Good
see
point.
what the difference in the results is. So, if you're
Yes.
confused by this high-tech discussion and you say, well, which should I do? There's so many trade-offs. Do both. Okay.
Yes, but Santino, as Christopher said, also share your work with knowledgeable persons.
Yeah.
Ask Christopher, ask Santino, am I correct? What do you think of what I'm doing?
Yeah, and that's what we're doing here. I agree.
We're here for that.
Yeah, we're here to help. But in general, if you're not sure what to do, do both. And Christopher made a good point that if both of them agree, that gives more confidence.
Yeah,
Now, what I
interesting.
found, let me just
Yes,
say one thing. This is very
yes.
important, so I need to say this. I have done both dozens and dozens and dozens of times, and I have never found an exception to the rule that the statistical significance of the shuffled control group is always worse than with the people. So it is a more conservative test that can have to do with the kind of research that I do, which is high vibration. So it's a specific kind of research, but it's consistently more conservative, which means it's
Okay,
missing
okay.
things that are there. But if it gets through the shuffled control group, we have high confidence.
Mhm.
So to me, it's very, very consistent. There will be exceptions to any rule, but you tend to get better statistical significance with with real people.
Mhm.
Have you seen the article by Robert Curie where he discussed that question and he gives criteria telling us what type of research elicit which type of control group?
I didn't see that.
Maybe it's not published because I read it,
Yeah.
maybe because he sent it to me. Okay, but you read it, Christopher, no?
Yeah. Yeah. A few months ago.
Okay. So it's been published in correlation.
No. He sent it to me.
Okay. To
It
me
hasn't been
also.
published yet.
It's gonna be.
We.
Don't miss that because he went further than our discussion tonight.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so the bottom line, because I want to get conclusions and I want to underscore them, because I don't want these meetings to be a bunch of head spinning, eye dazzling, whatever, and people just leave, with the deer in the headlights experience. Bottom line, do both. If you want to be safe, do both real people and a shuffled control group, and you'll see what the results are. And you know that the shuffled control group is more conservative, which means it's going to prevent type 1 errors, but it's going to create a lot of type 2 errors. And that's not as true with the real people. So that, I think, is a safe answer for everybody and takes the opinions of Vincent, me, and Christopher and finds a happy solution for everybody. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Makes sense. It makes sense.
Okay, so that's good. And you have to have software that'll create the shuffled control group, which is, one of the challenges. And, depending on what software you're using, there are various ways to do it.
I've
Yeah.
got also an Excel sheet that I share freely. I give it if you want. Doing it. It's very
Oh,
simple for
wonderful.
you.
Wonderful. And this is
Very
something we're going to make available on the Cosmobiology Institute website, various resources. We should
with
make that
pleasure.
available because anytime you're doing research, you almost always have your data in a CSV file or can export it to a CSV file.
You're right.
That
You're
can be
right.
read into Excel. You can run Vincent's Excel code to shuffle it and then export that out. And so there you've got the magic to do it for you, regardless of what system you're in.
And it's very quick. You generate 100,000
That's
charts in
extremely important, and we should get that on
very quick, very, very quick.
we should get that on the Cosmology Institute website so people can download it and anybody can create a shuffled control group because
Yeah,
that is fabulous.
within 1 minute, in less than 1 minute, you got
And it's fast.
100,000.
It's fabulous. That's really fabulous. Okay, so I didn't know about that, and that's a fantastic resource.
I never said it.
Yeah,
I do have one more question, and I know this could be something that people probably argue a lot about, but I just wondered if you guys had a specific house system that you use more often than others. Like, is there something everyone agrees on, or no?
Oh,
This is a
that's-
bad question.
you just incited a little war, Emily.
Yeah, that's
no.
a big
Yeah.
topic.
I forgot to mention I used Placidus just because it's so common. But
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
anyway,
popular.
yeah, like this that can be next meeting.
Yeah,
We're
you,
listening.
you might have seen tonight that people will argue, statisticians will argue and debate about shuffled versus non-shuffled control groups in exactly the same way that astrologers argue and debate about house systems.
Oh God, yeah.
Oh, I think it's more volatile, the discussions on house systems.
Terrible.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's
I
less-
agree
it's
with you,
less
Santino.
Yeah,
We
it's
get
can
some
be
There's
massive
so
tortured with
many,
one
and I
another, and we can understand each other's points of view.
There is some
It's a massive
research.
discussion.
There is some research by Kirsti Tarvainen that suggests that Koch houses work well and equal from the ascendant work well. Um, it's not airtight research, but there's also some theoretical things that go on that I've made tutorial videos about that I think are extremely important about house systems. One of which is that the ascendant is conjunct the midheaven, conjunct within a degree for millions of people.
Yeah,
This is something that
in the
we know that
northern
the houses, everybody knows the houses get skewed, as you go further, closer to the Arctic Circle. What's often ignored is number one, for at least many hundreds of thousands of people, the ascendant midheaven are conjunct. So 6 houses essentially disappear. Also, many signs do not rise above the Arctic Circle, and there are millions of people born at those, at those latitudes, which is also not recognized. So there are some fundamental issues, that we need to be aware of and think about because the people are perfectly normal. There's a city called Rovaniemi in Finland. It's right on the Arctic Circle. And twice a day on the Arctic Circle, house cusps disappear completely. They're non-existent using a quadrant house system. And there are flights going in and out and babies being born, and nothing unusual seems to happen. So
yeah,
these are, situations that we need to wrestle with and
yeah.
and discuss. And we should not take things that create great cognitive dissonance and just make believe they're not there.
But Santino, I don't worry too much about those extreme conditions. There's no rules obliging astrology to work with everybody on Earth. Let's give a stupid example that comes to my mind. Okay, here I have a liquid that if you put it on your, what's the word? Your on your body will prevent you from catching cancer from the sun, so that it protects you. That's science. Yeah, but it doesn't work with Black people. I mean, it's stupid, but you understand what I mean. There's no rule saying that even if it's good, valid, scientific, it's no rule that oblige that it works for everybody. So I just it's not a good solution, but it's.
I'm just saying
it's,
it's good to be aware of it, and that's your
oh yeah,
solution
oh
to
yeah, I
it.
agree.
It's
And
a
if you
topic
find
that,
it,
frankly, it's a
yeah,
topic astrologers never want to talk about.
yeah, you're right.
And
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they run away from inconvenient truths. So this is an inconvenient truth. You have a solution to it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying that anything other than we should be aware of it. And it's a real thing.
Maybe no houses, Emily. Don't use houses. Do as Ebertine. No houses.
There's a lot of possible solutions. I don't want to have a long
Yeah.
discussion about it right now. I just want to make the point that we have to face the facts, and that's a fact
Yeah, you're
that
right.
needs to be
Yeah.
addressed. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
Sounds like someone needs to come up with or someone could come up with another formula to calculate those people's charts.
Oh, I have my own personal solution to it. I've made tutorial videos about it. It's very
Oh, cool.
detailed. So people do have solutions to this problem. But I
Cool.
want to focus more just on the research methodology, if that's our main topic. But I have a clear solution to it, and other people have other solutions.
Equal houses from the ascendant works, no? For
Okay,
them?
my solution in 25 words or less, because I don't want to
Yeah,
pontificate endlessly on my own stuff. But there's a third point. We have the ascendant, we have the midheaven. There's a third point called the vertex, which many of you have
yeah,
heard about.
sure.
If you're born on the equator or very close to the equator, I can tell you what your vertex is with 100% accuracy.
Oh yeah, it's 90
It's either
degrees.
0 Aries or 0 Libra. The
Uh-huh.
vertex is always 0 Aries or 0 Libra on the equator, always. That means that the vertex, to me, I infer from that that it's not very meaningful for people born on the vertex. If you're born in Rovaniemi, and lots of people are, your houses go insane periodically, and I don't think using the ascendant makes sense. What happens is as the ascendant becomes chaotic, it just goes nuts as you go towards the North Pole, the vertex acts more normally,
Mm.
moves at a constant speed. As you get near the equator, the vertex goes nuts and sits there at 0 Aries and 0 Libra. And even if you're born in Miami, Florida, there's a limited range of where the vertex can be. So when you say, "Oh, your fate is whatever," well, the fate of everybody born in Miami is similar. It doesn't really make sense to me. So my theory is that it's very simple, is that the vertex becomes more important as you head to the poles, and
Wow.
the ascendant becomes more important as you head to the equator. And
Wow. Wow.
that's one way to solve the problem. And the fact that this works so beautifully and balanced is indicative. And also, if you take the vertex, ascendant, midheaven, one of those planes that they're based on is the floor and ceiling of your house. Another one is the north-south walls, if your house faces north-south, and the other is the east-west walls. If you remove one of those planes, you have a house without a room. So those three planes also form a nice, beautiful geometry that seems whole. So the whole thing fits together, and I've done a little bit of research to confirm, and it seems to work. We also have a hand up from Vanessa. So Vanessa, do you want to
Yeah,
say?
Vanessa is a friend, Quebecois. She's doing astrology research, and she's also a very, I think she's PhD in musicology, in music and composer.
Let her
Oh,
talk.
by the way, Santino, your thoughts are brilliant. I'm flabbergasted by what you explained.
Well, thank
I
you.
regret,
I want to hear
I
from
regret,
Vanessa. Vanessa, did you
yeah,
have something you wanted to say? You're muted right now.
Yes, sorry, thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Vincent. Um, yeah, so I arrived a bit late. I got the notice really, really last minute, but thanks for the invite, Vincent, as well. I came in this discussion, you were talking about statistical errors and how to avoid them. And then you also were asking about, how, or not asking, but talking about how can we help people who are not all caught up in statistical technicalities and everything. So I guess my question is more broad and philosophical, but what are we using this for in the sense of, I know we're okay, so there's been this question raised about do we work in favor of validating astrology? Do we just do we try to justify ourselves within the scientific community and everything? But also, what knowledge are we contributing with this research? Apart from furthering astrology, what are we serving with astrology? Like these research projects, how do they inform our practices? How does it make us better astrologers, in your view?
Excellent question. How does this research make better astrologers? If one of you who hasn't talked very much wants to share something, I'd love to hear it. Maybe Kai, I know you do research, and Penelope. I'd like to get different voices. Starlene does research. What thoughts do you guys have? I don't want to just be me, Christopher, and Vincent all the time. What thoughts do you have about, is this research useful, practical? Can we apply it? Is it going to help astrologers?
I'm
Kai.
not focused as much on, or at least my motivations aren't to, prove astrology in the realm of science. My motivation is to figure out what works and what doesn't. And, I do that through statistics, but I also do that through feedback from clients, and keeping track of that statistically and working with clients to improve their satisfaction and finding things that actually work for them. So taking those methods from various places, I'm primarily a medieval astrologer. I love to pull up these old things we find in Persian manuscripts and go, does this work? Or is it just somebody's, literary flight of fancy? So I think there's other ways that we can apply research in astrology besides just good hard statistics that we can publish and peer review and, compare with scientists. I think there's other things we can use our research leverages on.
I agree 100%. And I had a conversation with Ton Kuick, who's a brilliant researcher in the Netherlands today. And our discussion was about the importance of qualitative research, how important it is and how much we overlook it. And he recommended 3 books. They're very expensive. I bought all 3 on qualitative research because I want to get up to speed with some of the latest developments. Um, I think it's very important, and there's ways in your consultations to record the results as you are doing, Kai. And there are rules and, guidelines and all kinds of things to sharpen our ability. But that's kind of where technical analysis and practical application
Mhm.
can meet in a useful way. So thank you for sharing that.
Santino, did you notice that we have 2 newcomers from the north, from Canadian newcomers? I'd like to welcome François Rouleau, who is my partner in Mastro, father of Mastro, and also Ken McRitchie, close to Ottawa, a very deep thinker. Maybe a lot of people know him. He wrote books, and he's a very deep thinker and philosopher and thinker in astrology, and also a technical. How do you say that, Kenneth? Technical reviewer in a science article, I think. Something like that. I don't know if I see it correctly.
Technical writer.
Oh, okay. So Kenneth was very, very helpful for me in the article I published because he was my first critic.
Welcome, Ken. And who was the other person?
François Rouleau.
Francois. Thank you. This is wonderful. We've got a nice large group of people sharing ideas. Any other thoughts besides Kai's on what is this? What does all this research mean in terms of being practically useful for practitioners? Anybody else want to add something to it? I love what Kai said.
Uh,
Yeah,
I have
Christopher?
I have a few things to add. If there are others who want to go first, please do. Otherwise, I got a couple of things to add.
Yeah, go ahead, Christopher, because nobody else is jumping on board right away.
Okay, well, yeah, first and foremost, I do want to uh, contribute to what I already see as a preponderance of evidence that astrological effects do exist, that there are correspondences between certain celestial events and certain groups of terrestrial events. Because I want to have good research that will help convince people in other scientific disciplines that this is something that they should be paying attention to also. Now, within the field of astrology, I think there is a lot of research out there that is helping verify that certain techniques we use in astrology do have some validity. Research by Vincent and others, they show that progressions do have effects, midpoints have effects, and we've seen research by Kiosti and Vincent, which show that Western techniques probably do not work with sidereal zodiacs. Maybe other techniques work with sidereal zodiacs, but our traditional Western techniques developed on tropical zodiacs seem to work primarily just with the tropical zodiac. Uh, More recently, Vincent has found that if you're born in the Southern Hemisphere, then constructing a horoscope where you replace each sign by its opposite, replace Aries by Libra, Taurus by Scorpio, and so on, that works better than the traditional horoscope that we are all used to setting up. So we find new things. We find evidence that transits work. There is evidence that we get more, significantly more important news events when outer planet conjunctions or oppositions occur. So, aside from creating a body of evidence to help convince the rest of the scientific community, we're also helping to verify what things seem to work and what things don't seem to work well in traditional astrology. And there are other areas that no research, no high level statistical research has been done in, like Hellenistic Time Lord systems. So there are big gaps here and there
Yeah,
waiting to be studied.
if astrology was an evidence-based practice like psychology and medicine, practitioners would be advised to use midpoints because there's a lot of research indicating that they work. They would be advised to use secondary progressions. And then the way it works in psychology is that the techie researchers find out things that we have some level of confidence in, such as midpoint structures and secondary progressions. And then the practitioners, it's very tedious and boring, but they are required to record how effective those methods work for them. Those are sent back to the APA, the American Psychological Association. This is how it works in the United States, and they see if it works in practice. So there's this dynamic that occurs between the research and the practitioners. And if we had that dynamic in astrology, the
Great.
things that Christopher mentions that people would be advised to be using.
Yeah, and I think there's a broad agreement that aspects have stronger effects than signs or houses.
Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot
And
of research showing that.
yeah, as I've was mentioning to my wife the other day, I said, if everything we're finding is just purely by chance, some statistical artifact, I would expect those sort of chance occurrences of significant things to be more uniformly spread among aspects, signs, and houses.
They're not.
But since we see them really concentrated in aspects, that suggests that a lot of these effects are indeed real.
Right.
Yeah, and transits work too.
Yeah. I like to share an anecdotal story, which is kind of emotional. It's just anecdotal, but it's fun. I wrote a book on bipolar disorder, and I live pretty much in seclusion in North Carolina. But these two people insisted on visiting me that I had some research meetings with. So they visited, and I didn't know this, but they told me that one reason they want to visit me is because they have a son who is in his 20s, and he has bipolar disorder. The parents were reasonably wealthy, and they spent over $1 million sending the son to various retreats, I guess you call them, all kinds of therapies. And they said, could you look at his chart? So I went to my computer, entered it, did the analysis. And I said, well, there's several different kinds of bipolar disorder, according to my research. And your son he doesn't have the low impulse control type. He has the grandiosity type, where he feels that he should be doing something great and isn't. And this is in conflict with his introverted side, where he just locks himself away from people. And then I said, usually they tell somebody who locks themselves away to be social, and that can just aggravate the problem because you have to do it in a way that's, that doesn't fight their natural nature. And the father became very, very quiet, and I noticed a tear coming down his eye. And then the mother just broke down in tears. And the father said, you've just explained more than the $1 million that we've spent trying to
Ah,
understand our son.
I love that.
Now, that's an
Wow.
anecdotal story, but it shows the hope in answer to Vanessa's question. Does
Yeah.
all this fancy footwork with all these fancy statistics anything, does it amount to, as we say in the South, a hill of beans? Is it really worth anything? And that gives me the hope that, wow, I'm stunned that my manipulation of numbers could be so meaningful to people. And that's just one dramatic story. I could tell lots of anecdotal stories. I'm scientific, so I'm skeptical of science, just anecdotal evidence. But it's good to share, to show the hope that this could really help. And honestly, that's what drives me to do the research, is the hope that this is going to actually mean something. And Vanessa, you had your hand up again, so go ahead.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt anyone. I was interested in the different answers that were given to this question. I was also still sort of questioning it in the sense of it sounds like when we're proving something or we're working on proving or disproving a technique, for example, then we're also the result of it is that we're more confident in a technique that we're using. And okay, so to further this question, it's like, well, is it an objective? Like, is it a goal to be confident in the techniques that we're using? I mean, I guess as a researcher, I would like to always try to ask more questions within my practice, and why am I doing this, and maybe the meaning of astrology is only to better understand our universe or something. I don't know, but there's something about, okay, you're satisfied with the technique you're using, then what? Why is it good that you're confident with it? Yeah, I
Yeah,
guess food for thought.
I'd like to respond to that very briefly and then open it up to everybody. But I always encourage people to do research for the reason that you want to do it. There's no one answer and there's no one way. Some people are practicing astrologers and they see every day that their method works and they want to confirm it more objectively. Some people are doing exploratory research, investigating a number of possibilities. Some people want to open doors in academia. Some people just want to know what the truth is. You have to do what's exciting to you, what's motivating to you. I remember when I started graduate school, we had this introduction thing, and the professor said, most important for your dissertations and et cetera, is be excited about it. Because when you're 2 years into this and your head is spinning and you're going, it's getting tedious, you've got to be motivated. And I don't think there's one motivation. So, whatever is exciting to you is the reason you should do it. And I don't think there's just one reason. That's my opinion. Any other thoughts on this?
Mhm.
Well, I think that what you're saying, David, is so true. It's individual, the motivation that can get you interested in even astrology, and then research in astrology. And your book on bipolar drew me more toward studying you and listening to your research and the things. And as a practitioner before, I was a researcher. I'm going back to practicing some of the principles of our evidence-based techniques, and it's a journey of discovery with people like the anecdote, like the story you just told about the people who had their son as a problem. And as I do my readings and I incorporate these evidence-based techniques, those things are popping up and people are amazed. And I am amazed at hitting on something or not, I'm just not about trying to get a high score on this, but yes, I want to help people be more aware and appreciate themselves for who they are, their interests, their motivations, because that is somehow encoded in the chart. And these techniques are helping us to encode these things and have people benefit from that higher self-awareness. That by itself has tremendous positive psychological effects for them to go on with their lives and live it in a sense of purpose. That I think is really a large thing. And if we happen to be able to provide that in a way just by doing what we do in a clean and ethical way, I think that's a wonderful reason to keep going.
That's wonderful. I want to share what Starlene has in the chat. I have not been looking at the chat.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just read what she wrote here for everyone. She wrote, for me, it's not about proving anything either, but I see evidence-based astrology matters because it gives us a framework for understanding what is more likely to emerge at a given time, not as a fixed prediction, but as a meaningful pattern of probability. The framework helps us distinguish between vague intuition and grounded guidance. So for me, ultimately, research matters because it helps us guide people more responsibly. That's the language of an evidence-based practice. Psychology and medicine are not like chemistry and physics. They don't prove anything. It's about gaining greater confidence about what you're doing and being more grounded. So that's a beautifully stated evidence-based attitude towards this. So thank you, Sterling.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. You want to talk, Christopher? You were
Oh,
before me.
I
I
was going
wanted to ask you something.
who, me or Santino?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you to help
Oh,
me
okay,
on
go ahead.
something.
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
but it's a general interest. I see now from our discussion since more than half an hour that there are two axes. One axis is about what's the practical goal. How can we give something to practicing astrologer by evidence-based, etc. And the other axis is about validity of rigorous establishing the validity without thinking of any application. So it reminds me something that Christopher knows a lot better than me. When I was you know what I'm thinking. When I was a math student, there were two fields:
Yeah,
applied mathematics and theoretical mathematics that you
yeah.
were more into it. But can you explain this difference among what you're taught about this difference in the field of mathematics? I think it would be very good metaphor for our problem here?
Oh, well, pure or theoretical mathematics is concerned only with developing the theory of mathematics itself, without any regard to application. And it focuses a lot on theorem proving. Applied mathematics tends to see the value of mathematics more in terms of solving some practical problem or application in the real world, and is less concerned with the overall underlying structure of mathematics.
Mhm. I think that I remember at the time I was student in the 70s that the most talented students were going more into theoretical mathematics like you've done. I know that you were
Yeah,
not in applied mathematics, but I think this trend has changed. Can you comment on that?
strange that I went into theoretical mathematics.
No, I think the trend has changed. I think the most talented at that
Oh,
time, a
yeah,
long time
yeah,
ago, but now that's not true anymore.
yeah. I think there is more of an emphasis on applied mathematics these days. In fact, back in the 1960s, at a lot of big universities, you had separate departments, a department of pure or theoretical
Yes.
mathematics and a department of applied mathematics. And but I think there are a couple of reasons why the focus has gone back more toward applied mathematics these days. One is because that's where I think a lot of the government money is. Because it's, and money has much more of an influence on academic departments these days than it used to. And at a lot of big universities now, one of the requirements for getting tenure is that you bring a lot of money into the department through government grants. And a lot of people in Congress these days are more inclined to want things, money sent to support projects that are going to give what they see as immediate practical results.
Yeah.
Now the other
Yeah.
reason, though, is I think that at least in America, in a lot of places, I think the quality of education has diminished.
Oh.
And that and as I always say, I'm not all that smart, but people have gone downhill so much that I'm starting
There-
to look really smart in
There's something
comparison.
else also that you may comment on,
Yeah.
which is connected exactly with our problem with astrology, the two axes. I remember that theoretical mathematicians at that time were saying, we don't care about practicality, but anyway, time often find a practical issue to our theoretical math. And they
Yeah.
had a lot of examples. Can you comment on that?
Oh, yeah. They would, you're right. There were a lot of pure mathematicians. In fact, for quite some time, there were a lot of number theorists, people in number theory, who at that time they took pride in the recognition that their field seemed to have no practical applications. But of course, that has changed over the years because number theory has a lot to do with developing codes that are very difficult to break. But throughout history, what has happened is pure mathematicians will prove some theorem with no application in mind. They're proving it simply because it seems to be essential to the structure of mathematics. But 50 or so uh, years later, that becomes a result which is essential, say, physics or
And I think
engineering.
Let me
this could,
hold on a second. I think we're
yeah.
having too much discussion with the brainiacs here. So really, these meetings
I
are
was
to.
going to connect, Santino, I was going to connect with astrology, but
No,
he's
I know, but we
explaining
need
the,
other people to speak. Vanessa's got her hand up, and I
Okay.
really
yeah,
want to hear from the attendees, which
if
is
they
what
wanted,
these.
if they want to talk, they just raise hand and they talk.
Okay, so Vanessa, what did you want to say?
Thanks. Actually, there's something that came up here when we were talking about wanting to um, uh, like do the right thing or some such thing within our field. And I would like to add that I'm quite weary of scientism. And whilst I'm not like disregarding science at all, I'm also like we just can't ignore that in the field of astrology there are many, many people who also use astrology as part of their intuitive practice. And I think it would be a mistake to discount these practices as not as well informed because they use other means than pure data or pure science. And I think it's a really risky thing. It's a very, very, very slippery slope. I am aware of it. But also, I think I'm also speaking as from the perspective of an artist and from the perspective of a woman, where intuitive approaches and creative approaches are very often discounted because they're not proven with pure data and pure science. And I think they still have value. And that's my comment. I'm not saying there's one final truth or one better way of doing things. I'm just saying I feel there is some discomfort here in discounting completely intuitive people because they're not pure scientists.
Yeah, I agree with that completely, and I'm glad you brought it up. I always point out one of my really good friends in astrology who lives not that far from me is a spiritual astrologer named Robert Wilkinson. And we have two very different approaches to astrology. But none the, mine is more statistical, his is more grounded in spirituality and metaphysics, but on many things, we often come to the same conclusions. We get there by different methods. And so I always say that there is more than one path to wisdom. And I think what you said is absolutely right. While I think there's a need for the kind of astrological research that I and others are doing, it's a very good reminder that, again, there's more than one path to wisdom and more than one good and valid way to approach astrology.
I just
Vincent? Yeah.
conclude on what Christopher, the reason why I asked Christopher to talk about those math, difference in math, I had in mind connection with astrology. And the conclusion for me, after what he said, is that fundamental and pure theoretical research in astrology may find eventually practical outcomes anyway.
Yeah, and there's some things that Santino has discovered through his exploratory research into vibrational or harmonic astrology that I've incorporated into my practice as a mundane astrologer. My two great passions in astrology these days are, statistical, evidence-based astrology and mundane astrology. And, whenever I'm looking at an upcoming lunar month now, where I usually look at a, new moon, first quarter, full moon, third quarter, and the next new moon, I also take a look to see what higher harmonics or vibrations are going to be prevalent. I take note of that. If I see a lot of uh, seven vibrations throughout the month, then that signifies to me, based on Santino's research, that people are really going to be focused on things this month. If I see a lot of 11th vibrations, I get the feeling that they're restless or urgent to accomplish something, get something done. So, the research that other people in evidence-based astrology has done, it filters down, it makes an impact on how I do some things in mundane astrology.
Yeah. So the research becomes useful in practice. I want to mention something also with Vanessa's point. I've taught many, many, many classes. I no longer teach, but some of my most outstanding students were psychic mediums, shamans, things like that. Starlene is here. She does a lot of intuitive work. She also does some great research. I've never seen in my experience with astrology any tension between the intuitive and the analytical. They're all resources, and when the analytical methods work, they seem to trigger the sensitivity even more in the intuition. So, it's all valuable. One thing where there can be a conflict between what astrologers do and the researchers is an example would be where we researched over 20,000 married couples who have AA data, and Kiosti found that there was no zodiac sign relationships. I did my own independent research, found the same thing. Everywhere you look, people talk about how having planets in the same element is preferable. But at least in this group of people, they're not choosing a marriage partner based on that. So I think the research can be helpful for questioning the techniques we're using because those are not purely intuitive. They're based on rules. And there I think the research is helpful. But in terms of intuition of different kinds, nothing should block that. It doesn't make any sense. I think I'm summarizing something probably we all agree about, just
Mhm.
giving words to it.
Was that research just sun signs or was it other signs as well? I'm just curious.
Well, when I did it, I compared Sun, Moon, Venus, and Mars, especially, and I did all combinations. His sun to her moon, his moon to her sun, his Venus to her Mars, his Mars to his Venus, Venus to Venus, Mars to Mars. I did them all, and none of them showed an element preference.
Mhm.
Okay, interesting.
Now, that doesn't mean that it's not preferable, or maybe the happier marriages are in the same element. It doesn't like discount it completely, but it gives greater confidence to the idea that those kind of zodiac sign relationships do not incline a person to pick someone. And these are also people who have at least one child. So their relationship was stable and long enough that they had one or more children. So, no research like this is going to be definitive and say you should never use it. It doesn't work under any circumstance. But it's important, relevant information that does give us less confidence in using the standard ideas that are often used for compatibility.
Mm.
And I did research using my vibrational stuff and did find things that exist, but it was exploratory, similar to what you've done, Emily. But I did use a shuffled control group, and that does give some indication that there might be other things going on. Okay, we are 10 minutes over. This has been a great discussion. Uh, any other thoughts, questions? I love to hear from those of you who've been fairly quiet. Anything you want to say before we close up for the night? I think Emily sent us on a very interesting and exciting discussion, and yeah,
Hey, I'm glad I could help inspire if I did,
you
but
were
it,
inspiring.
Sure.
Um, but any other comments before we wrap it up for the night? I thank all of you for being here. It's just wonderful. and the new people that have come, bringing in different talents, skill sets, just wonderful. We just want to share, build, and help each other sort out what astrology is, and have an organization that provides that as inexpensively and as openly as possible. Um, I will mention one thing at the closing, and hopefully I don't get too emotional. Well, no, I'm going to get too emotional. Forget it. I won't talk about it. Are we good for the night?
I'll just say one more thing. As we move forward, we need not only statisticians, we need people with coding and programming skills.
Mm.
We need people who can create new large databases for us to analyze. We need people who are familiar with techniques that weren't very common when I was younger, like random forests and neural networks. So uh, a lot of y'all out there may have different gifts than maybe I and Vincent or Santino have, but they can still be gifts that we need to move evidence-based astrology forward.
And let me add to that list qualitative research. This is something I'm going to
Yeah.
be talking to Vincent and Christopher about. And also, we have another person who's going to join our core team for the technical analysis. Um, I'm very, very keen about qualitative research. It's extremely important. It gives us important information. And most qualitative research does not involve hardly any statistics. It requires what we call content expertise. It means astrologers, people who know stuff, and to use their knowledge and their intuition to see if those ideas are viable. A lot of my research has been qualitative, my research on zodiac signs. And I think my research on zodiac signs is often ignored because it is qualitative research and people feel like, oh, well, there's no, solid data. Well, sorry, it's important research. It's extremely important research. And it tells us something about zodiac signs that, frankly, all astrologers should be paying attention to because it gives us greater confidence about what the zodiac signs do. It requires no statistics, it requires a lot of sensitivity, a lot of verbal intelligence, a lot of time and effort. So there's a whole realm of research that I want to make more available to practicing astrologers that they already have the skills and talents to advance in. Starlene has done a lot of qualitative research that does not involve statistics, but gives us greater confidence about how things work. I just want to add that in.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, anything else? We're all good?
Thank you, Santino. Thank you very
Okay,
much.
you're welcome.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everyone. And, in future meetings, I hope more people
Thank
speak
you.
up and we, can collectively address the things that are interesting to you. Okay.
It's been lovely to listen. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Mhm.
God bless.
Yeah, nice to meet
Good night.
everyone.
Thank you.
And I
Good night.
Good night.